Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with other entrepreneurs that have overcome and want to provide value to our audience. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses how to work on their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. I encourage you to go over to our Facebook group. It's Millionaire Nurse CEO. Become a part of that group. We will be going live for our master class. March 14th will be our next date. So I encourage you to go over there and kind of sign up. Kind of hang out with us. So I want to introduce my friend, an amazing person, Miss Aris Claybrook. So Aris, in your own words, tell us who you are.
Oh my goodness. Well, good morning, Dr. V. Thank you for having me. In my own words, I know that we are so identified as nurses, as CEOs, but I would have to consider myself just a holistic advocate of healthcare. I've been around this field, early in my youth, found a natural knack for it, which was ironic because, as we talked about, I thought I was going to be a businesswoman, which came later. But initially, I found just this amazing connection to people at a very young age. Worked in the field, kind of in the nursing assistant role, felt my way around the med tech role, all in undergraduate school. And then I knew once my feet were going to hit the ground, I was going to hit the ground running. So right to the ICU. Once the ICU kind of gave me my field and it kind of satisfied that adrenaline rush, I continued to pursue education. I've done teaching. I've done hospice, I've done infusion therapy, sickle cells, a lot of roles in which I'm very proud of. But overall, I just consider myself a very committed advocate for patients.
I love it. So let me ask you something. Get some feedback. So let me ask you something about you. You said that you had a natural connection with people. Now tell me about, like, how did nursing come about? Like, was that something that like someone in your family did, or did you, like, how did that happen?
Interesting. No. I had my grandmother's aunt. She was a nurse. My Aunt Cheryl, she got out of the career earlier in her life though. So, we knew that there was something very proud, but, I didn't get a chance to connect with her about her career, when I was younger, because she had gotten out of her career at bedside, so early. So for me, it was a compilation of little events that let me knew that this is something in my spirit person. One of the most memorable events was I was, my first year in college, I'm undeclared. So I'm just like, because, as obviously working as a CNA, they're thinking, oh, just go to school for nursing. That's the most natural pathway. But for me, I was like, nursing school is so hard. I hear all of the horror stories. I'm thinking like, I want to get dressed. Let's go to school for business. I was one of those. I started college at 17. I just wasn't sure. During that same year of my first college experience, my grandmother went into heart failure so severely in which she needed a heart transplant. Okay. So I had a chance to actually stand by her side and witness it as I was, like I said, undeclared, still just working, as a CNA. But the way in which I was able to look at the total picture at that young of an age, I knew that I would do myself a disservice if I didn't follow what my spirit allowed me. I remember my grandmother's eyes being jaundiced. And because she had so many other things going on. Now she's in the ICU, one of the best ICUs we have here in Wisconsin, but there were so many things going on. They didn't see that we were tipping, some of her liver functionality, et cetera, et cetera. And I asked the nurse, I remember asking her, I said, why are her eyes I know my grandmother, so her eyes were becoming yellow. And she said, that was just something they weren't focusing on. It was the heart, the kidneys, et cetera, right? Priority. And I remember just noticing and assessing her in such a deep way and understanding why this system, it made sense to me. And from there, I said, you know what? This is my time. This is my time. So
I love everything about that. One of the things that I really like about that is that you, number one, there's a couple of things. You knew your grandmother. And so a lot of people, they are against. There's a lot of nurses that don't really like, especially when it came about, is that bedside shift report. But it is most important. And the reason why it's most important is because you as the family know more about the patient than anybody else does. And so a lot of people buck that systematic process, but they really shouldn't, because that gives them insight.
Agreed.
That's number one. Number two, what you said about the fact that you wanted to dress up, you wanted to be a businesswoman, and how now you are marrying the two, like you're marrying the two professions together. So I love that. I love all of that. So now, next, let's talk about you, and let's talk about your son. Okay, let's talk about him. So he was. So tell me when he was born. Like, tell me all of that, because you had your son and now you have your daughter, and they're two different polar opposites. But that's just how girls and boys are. But go ahead.
Correct. That is correct. So during my whole, that 17 to 21 was something for Miss Aris, okay? Because like I said, I just remember that point in our life, and as so many of us can, I just remember that point in my life where it was a very pivotal time. I was trying to, we would like to think that we have it all figured out, and you go to college, you start your career, and that just wasn't my story. My story was, I went to college, I had a ball in college, and I also at the same time simultaneously was very career oriented, but I was in love, and I had all these beautiful adult like attributes, and I just thought that when Makai came about, I was like, oh, I can simultaneously. So Makai finished college with me. We as a family, like I just remember going to clinicals, and Makai and I did the bones, and he just, because 21, I know that's not a very uncommon age to have children, but at the same time, it is a very tender age for an adult and a child to, just come into that growth phase. So Makai and I, we were, Makai and Aris was one word. So we were kindred spirits. He was a brainiac. He loved learning. I mean, even at the ages of 2 and 3, and he was learning the finger phalanges and the bones and the muscles. I remember him retaining that information. So my son, during his course of his life, education was very important to him. So while, having a kid at 21, I got a little kickback about that, obviously. As we're parents and we know we want everything to move systemically for our children. It was one of the best things because Makai grew up appreciating and demanding very high scores. Academics were something that was very important to him. He was just a beautiful overall human being. So we had a very normal pathway. Again, we started my career. We started some of my business plans. We did all those things together. We went through just what I thought was a normal, waxing and waning for a mother and son. And then at the age of 11, Makai was entering his 5th grade year, and we started to notice some things. So immediately as a mother, you want to ICU nurse, we're already a little bit over the top. Everything is critical. I asked I said, he's complaining of these posterior headaches. Can we just do a scan, make sure everything is okay? CT came back perfect, no issues. But my son continued, once again, here we are, knowing your child, knowing your family member. My son continued to complain of these symptoms, and the symptoms started becoming progressive. So now the posterior headache went into, Mom, I said I have double vision. The posterior headache advanced into Makai being clumsy. And it was almost as though, like I said, because the pediatrician kind of blamed it on, oh, these are growth spurts. He was a taller child. There was every other reason, but something continued to sit in poking at me and saying something, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. So when the symptoms started to manifest, they just came like a whirlwind. Like I said, the unbalancing, his speech became a little bit not delayed, but more paced. And I just said, why is he speaking like this? So during that same time frame, I just remember having to say, okay, Aris, just go in, rule it out. It's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing. And I remember going into the hospital and they found a tumor in his cerebellum. So he was diagnosed with medulloblastoma at the age of 11.
Now, so I want to stop you right there. So you heard the diagnosis. Like what ran through your mind at that moment?
I tell you, we are the worst patients. I can tell you that. And when I say that, it's not that I was uncooperative, but it was almost like it was there is no nightmare that you can think of that would have been worse than that feeling I felt in that moment. In that moment, when that nurse practitioner came back with the results of that scan, I remember Makai just being, his typical 11-year-old self. And I saw the look on her face, because we know that look. She couldn't hide it. So before she even opened her mouth, I remember the look in her eyes. And it was a whirlwind of emotion. I just remember so before she could even open her mouth, I already knew that something was wrong. So everything, Dr. B, when they say that theory that you have to explain things to patients on several different occasions, because when you give a person news, it is 1000% true. I'm a detective. I hear everything. When she said, I remember her eyes first, and we found something on the scan, everything else was blank. I remember that. I was one of those patients, family members that was entirely devastated, could not believe that I was experiencing this. So I just want us to know, as healthcare professionals and providers, this is not just a thing for us. This is not just, these theories are not just theories that we have to be proficient on. These are actually things that happen. And I am now able to correlate those theories and what they feel like at the bedside as well. So.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So now, what were the next steps after he was diagnosed? So tell us about the next steps, and what did they give you a prognosis at that time? They did.
No, my dear. So initially the next steps were, we knew that we had to do a biopsy. Well, biopsy is a cute word for brain surgery. You can't obtain a biopsy from the brain without surgical intervention. So it was very step by step for Makai. We did the first craniotomy. Makai, being his mother's child, we got through that like champs. I remember Makai coming out of surgery, and he had the ICP monitor, and he's making jokes about my tummy. Doctor, can you give my mom a pregnancy test? Her tummy's looking a little bloated. Those are the types of things. Of course, that's my Makai. That is the spirit he had. I mean, fresh out of surgery. So we did that. Biopsy came back positive. Indicative of the medulloblastoma. We underwent rigorous radiation for 30 days. We underwent chemotherapy for that particular, there's an algorithm they follow. So we underwent that algorithm for the chemotherapy. Like I said, my son, he did everything so gracefully. He did it, and he committed one of the things the school will tell him, and this is why they celebrate him, is that Makai still was committed, determined to get to school. So he would go through those chemo runs. He would go sleep in the nurse's station to get back up for class. And he wasn't a person that was overly concerned about his balding head or those children. There are some children out here in this world that are being raised well because those children catered to Makai without him having to ask, because he was a very proud child, and those teachers, shout out to Racing Unified, shout out to Case High School, those teachers, McKinley Middle School, Starbuck Middle School, his whole IB program, they supported him every step of the way. Every step of the way. We had the best support system in the city of Racine that you could ever ask for, including my wonderful sister Cheryl.
I love every part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about how he, I'm gonna take this headphone off. Tell me about what you did as a result of it. Like after you went through all of this and you found out that the prognosis was not gonna be as good. Tell me about what you did.
Can you repeat that, Dr. V? I didn't hear that last part.
I think I probably need to put this back in here. So after you knew that the prognosis was not going to be good, how did you handle that when you knew that this was probably he was not going to survive it?
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. V, the one thing, this is going to be a little, maybe, I don't know how some people would classify this. It might be a little bit, uncommon. But one thing that we did is we never lived life like that way. We knew that the statistics against reoccurring medulloblastoma became slimmer and slimmer every time it reoccurred. Makai's reoccurred 3 times. But also the statistics for reoccurring medulloblastoma has a life expectancy of 1 year. Makai lives 7. So we never, ever, 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 because when I tell this story, we think that, the kids with cancer, Makai went into full-blown remission. Makai was getting haircuts again. He had these beautiful styles. He gained his weight back, and then we took a dip. And then we went back through it, and we traveled. I mean, there were so many beautiful moments during this lifespan that he had. But what I did is just like him, and I encouraged him to do, we focus on the here and now. So it wasn't until 2022 when we went in the hospital after having COVID, myself and my son and my daughter, we all tested positive for COVID. That following January, Makai started to take a severe decline. He started to be those initial symptoms that I found when he first, was diagnosed. They came back. Then they came back with a vengeance. He began to start falling and tripping, and the headaches and the vomiting, irretractable vomiting, they all started to come out of nowhere. And it's just as though, after COVID, everything just manifested. So we went in the hospital. I didn't know if that was going to be his new baseline, or I didn't know if the tumor was growing so rapidly that this was the end, because you kind of don't know. They imaged him, and it was no significant way to say either way. So it was, there's no concrete way to say either way. So what we did is from February 11th to March 11th, we celebrated. I did not go into this situation for my own mental health and for his spirit, even though he was starting to become paralyzed, even though he was starting to, his face had became asymmetrical. All of this, he started to, he almost presented like a stroke patient because of where the tumor was lying. We celebrated. Again, we gave him his full graduation. He received his acceptance to Marquette University for engineering. We lived Makai's life until Makai was done. We lived his life and we celebrated him. We still celebrate him today. So for me, Dr. V, once I knew that the statistics were against us, I just continued to stay focused on the here and now. And I continued to do the same with Makai. Because as a parent, and I'm sure a lot of you, I mean, yourself and a lot of our viewers are parents right now, as a parent, it's the unthinkable. So I couldn't. So I took the stages of Makai's health the way that they presented. I took the stages of Makai's prognosis the way they presented. Every day from February 11th to March 11th was different. Some days he was up at 'em, moving, talking, laughing. Other days he was in pain, et cetera, et cetera. So, like I said, Children's Hospital, Dr. Tanaka, Nurse Susie, inpatient team, Nurse Bridget, they allowed myself and Makai to lead. And I also advocated for him also. So when they started talking hospice, and Makai knew what hospice was, obviously as a nurse's son, I didn't allow that. I said, let's start with palliative and let's treat his symptoms as they go. But you're not going to prematurely kill his spirit before his body decides what it's going to do. I know I'm a little, like I said, I know I'm a little bit different in that space, but that's what allows me to sit here with you today, is because I know I advocated for his spirit, for his mental health. And I know that when Makai and I parted ways in the physical, Makai knew that Mom fought that fight for him. And he knew that he had the best nurse on his team. He told the world. So
I think that's a testament to you as mom, though. I think that, just incredible kudos to you. Okay. Incredible kudos. Because let me tell you something. I saw this video the other day, and one of the things that they said on the video is that the reason why we're depressed is because we're living in the past. The reason why we're anxious is because we're living in the future. And to be living in the moment, from moment to moment, is a skill set that a lot of people don't have. And they struggle with living in the moment. And for you to be able to do that, and not only do it, but to translate it to your son, because he can't do anything. I don't believe, I think that he was probably an amazing young man, but they get their cues from us as parents. And you, for you to be able to do that, kudos. Absolute kudos.
Oh my gosh. All gracious, all glory to the Most High, because I think about, Dr. V, to be quite frank with you, you think about all these little deposits you get throughout your life, all the books you read, all the, for a lot of us, scriptures we read, all of the, my mother, journaling and all these tools. And I was just like, why have you do all this? My mom used to make me watch Oprah and all these. I said, Mom, my friends outside, and she used to really dedicate an hour of my time when I got home from school to watch. She used to make me. And I said, why is she making me do these things? All these deposits. I have a godmother who taught us relationships with God and scriptures through rough times. I have all these people all my life make these deposits, never knowing why. And those deposits I was able to give to my son. And if you talk about one thing that describes me more than anything, because I'm actively grieving, you guys, I can imagine people would know that. But gratitude is a word that covers my entire life. More than anything, more than grief, I am so grateful, because I still had a level of preparation. I still had a level of ammunition. I still had, scripture and quotes and tools and all those things to accommodate those things. So I was given those things and throughout my life, those deposits, and I had to use them. And I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for each person as well.
That is amazing. It is amazing. Just talking to you, like when, we started talking to each other, I knew that you had an amazing spirit, and I'm glad that your mama deposited into you. And I think that a lot of people, they don't understand that whole depositing into, like, your mama made you sit down and watch Oprah, right?
Yeah.
Made you, that's huge. because it gives you that sense or that level of, okay, this is where we can be, this positive way of going about things. So now, after the process of burying your son, like how was that? How did you get through that? Like in the moment of him passing away, even, how did you get through that?
Faith, faith, because I challenged myself the same way I challenged Makai. As I challenged him to take his prognosis in phases, I did the same with this afterlife process. I took it in little by little. Again, that's a whole nother segment. If I could share with you about the sister circle I have, it would be a book within itself. I was supported and carried every way that you can imagine by his aunts and the people who loved him. That within itself is overwhelming, because there are people in this world who may never experience such support. I was overwhelmed with it. I had people flying in from every side of the United States that you can imagine to lay at my bed with me. So when I think about the way in which I was supported, that more than anything carried me through. He gave me the exact people I needed for the exact situation. And I told them my wishes. I told them we're not going to bury Makai. We're going to celebrate Makai. I told them I cannot stomach to watch him in the ground. They made sure that I had a crypt. And that sounds silly, right, Dr. V, right? But it all had to make sense for mom to move on. I didn't do an open casket. That was something else I was very adamant about. I wanted to I did not watch them put him in the crypt. I stood back, and then I came down after his crypt was closed so I could see his name, and we've had the pastor pray. I was very intentional about the way I moved forward with that so I could survive, because I know that's what Makai would want. Certain things trigger me you'd be surprised what triggers you as a parent, right? The closing of the casket. I've never liked death. I don't like the closing of the casket. I don't like I said, something about being underground really freaks me out. And like I said, for his ceremony, he was not eulogy. He was celebrated. If you guys ever get a chance or anyone's ever interested to hear about his life, it's on YouTube. His article is in the paper. If you Google him, City of Racine did declare a day for him, for Makai L. Smith Day. He was a very special soul. I'm not making this up, you guys. He was the purest and the best version of me. And I think I'm okay. But
I
he
love
was
it.
better.
So we're going to transition to talking about your business. So tell us about the business. Tell us about what you got going on, because I'm over here crying because
I appreciate it.
So tell it's funny because what you talked about, because at the Six Figure Nurse CEO conference that we just had this past weekend, one of the things that one of the attendees asked us, she said, how do you find momentum or motivation whenever you don't feel like it? And that's exactly what I said, the sisterhood. And so my circle, if it had not been for them, I'd be anywhere. So anyway, we're gonna talk about your business because that's what we came here to talk about. But so let's go ahead and talk about that.
Thank you. So so sorry, Dr. V, I apologize. I'm just gonna silence this. So for my business, Dr. V, my original business was a nurse consultant. I worked as a nurse consultant to encourage, initially it was nurses to move outside of just our bedside role, outside of our nurse practitioner role, outside of our roles, and encourage us to, be a patient advocate kind of in our own domain. So that was really the reason I wanted to match people who had an entrepreneurial spirit and who had the wherewithal to do so with the right and provide the right education for the community. So it was kind of a twofold. I wanted to provide education to the staff coming from obviously an assistant role, kind of, being able to give that training and support to that role. But I also wanted to help people open up their businesses to be able to have more financial freedom, because obviously committed to nursing, we're already in the right space. Our mindsets, our spirits, our assessment skills. So we already have that space. So it was just assisting them and help molding them to see things from more of an entrepreneurial space. So I did a lot of supporting people in their journey when it came to facilities, CBRFs, adult family homes, adult daycares. I really supported, the entrepreneurial division of it. And then I provided training in the community, diabetes awareness, professionalism, documentation, a lot of these skill sets that people don't have because, they're always working underneath either a nurse or some other, professional, so they necessarily don't have to be proficient in it. So that was what my original company was. It was a nurse consulting company that kind of developed this system for the adult assisted living community. So both the education and the initiation of the facilities. So that was my initial business. Now I have advanced into a skilled home healthcare services. So that is our next big project. Life Pulse is moving into a skilled home healthcare setting. Super excited about it because now I'm ready to connect with my colleagues. I'm ready to build some relationships. I'm ready to get back out in the community and take all the things I've been through and create a team that has that passion and desire. You guys, we've been through a lot, like not just personally, COVID took us out. The world is different now, so there is not as much passion towards our field. People are tired. People come to work and they're not appreciated. People come to work and they're kind of, losing. I felt some of that through my process and COVID. Being a critical care nurse, I was hit both ways. I kind of had to be rebirthed. So I would like to set up an environment where I can create a community and a culture that still has that passion. I am passionate about healthcare, you guys. Like I'm one of those. Like I'm still like, what? The patho comes, like, even the psych part of it. Like I'm just like, oh, how can we implement this? How do we, I'm still I still am that girl. And I appreciate that because sometimes as nurses, Dr. B, we can get a little fatigued. We can get a little jaded. We can get a little desensitized is a really good term that I hear people say. So I would like to create some fire and create a healthy work environment for sure.
I love that, and I love the fact that you're going into home health care because of the silver tsunami that's coming through. That's going to be incredibly. It's going to provide value to your clientele, but not just that. It will provide you with a great way to because we're in business to make money. We're in business to make money. We're in business to make an impact. Those are the two reasons, and to carry 3 reasons to carry out a purpose. And so, because of that, it will definitely be something that we can do. So I want you to drop your link in the cut, as soon as we finish the podcast and all of that, and then we'll kind of go from there. Now, is there anything else that you want to impart to the audience before we get ready to roll out?
Oh my gosh, no, I would say if I have to, my sentiments at this point in my life is just that I know that we're all going through something, but I truly encourage all of us, especially, because I'm team nurse. You guys know that, like I'm team nurse. I know we love our doctors. I mean, we love our doctor, but I'm talking about like, doctor, you're doctor of nursing. You're like amazing. Like, so I'm just team us. And our field is very special, from your role down to even our assistant, our nursing assistant role. And I just encourage us to be passionate, to think about what about being on the other side of that bed. And I encourage us to approach our patients, our teammates. I encourage us to think about that as we are performing and doing this ministry. So I'm rooting for us. I'm rooting for us in a very special way. And I hope that we can collectively continue to, bring, patient care back to where it needs to be. So I thank you for your time as well. You are definitely an inspiration to me. So yes.
You are amazing. You absolutely are amazing. I mean, the more I talk to you, the better it gets. So if you want to learn more about how to monetize your knowledge, you can join our Facebook group, Monetize as a Nurse Coach.
Sure.
You can join us for our live event. It was a Six-Figure Nurse CEO conference initially, but now it's turning into the Millionaire Nurse CEO conference, because that's where we're going.
Yes.
We will be having a masterclass March 14th, I do believe, from 5 until 8 p.m. And so I ask that everyone that they like and share the podcast. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.